Chapter 6. The saying "ouch." Jiang Yi collided into Jiang Xiaonu. She cried out in pain as she knocked the back of her head against the ground. Thankfully, however, her reaction was fast. Seeing the guard continuing to charge forward and attack Jiang Yi once again, she pounced forward and firmly clung to one of the guard's legs. At the same time, she shouted, "Young master, don't worry about me, just run." Xiaonu. Jiang Yi trembled to think that Jiang Xiaonu would try overestimate her capabilities despite her clear lack of strength. If the guard tried to kick her off, wouldn't she end up being kicked to death? His mind seemed to move particularly quickly during such a greatly dangerous moment. An idea came to him suddenly. It seemed as though during his research that afternoon, when some black essence force was transferred to his eyes, time had slowed down by a smidgen. "I'll give it a try." With that thought, he hastily transferred a wisp of black essence force to his meridians, merging it with the blue essence force within them before circulating them towards the meridian at the corner of his left eye. At the same time, he once again transferred black essence force, the last remaining strand in his dantian, towards his right hand. He had consumed all 5 strands of black essence force he had previously cultivated that day. If he still could not beat back that guard with power at the 3rd stage of the cast tripod realm, there was nothing Xiaonu and himself could do but to endure more incoming attacks. Buzz! A flash of darkness flickered in his left eye as everything in his vision became very clear and vivid, as though the world had changed once again. On top of that, it seemed as though time had indeed slowed down. He observed the palm in front of his eyes still in the midst of slapping downwards, but moving at a speed several times slower than before. He also witnessed that guard realizing that Xiaonu was on his leg, and that his left leg was in the process of moving as he got ready to transfer his essence force for a strong kick that would send Xiaonu flying. "Take this!" Silk hands. Holding back the violent rage in his heart and the searing agony he felt tripping through his left chest, Jiang Yi shouted aloud to draw his opponent's attention while using both his hands to entangle his opponent's hands like 2 sea vines. Sure enough, his opponent was indeed distracted by his loud shout and no longer had his attention on Xiaonu. Instead, he scoffed coldly before swinging his palms in a sweeping movement towards Jiang Yi's hands. As that guard saw it, his absolute power could crush all martial arts techniques, let alone Jiang Yi's abilities, which could not even manifest the innate power of any martial arts techniques. As an example, the wrestling hand technique that Jiang Yi used earlier was easily deflected by him. Alright, that outcome was exactly what Jiang Yi wanted. If it happened much earlier, or if the opponent moved his palms in a sweeping motion, his own hands would have been deflected away and injured by the shockwave of that sweep. As the opponent's realm level was 2 times greater than Jiang Yi's, his speed was too fast, leaving Jiang Yi completely unable to clearly see the trajectory of the sweeping motion of his palms. But now, the condition had changed completely. The vision of his left eye changed an obscene amount, to the point that even time seemed to have slowed by several moments. As such, he was able to see clearly and with much ease the trajectory of the sweeping motion of his opponent's palms. This meant that he could determine in advance how to avoid the blow and, on top of that, even find the right angle to counterattack. He moved a thread of the combined black essence force, circulating around his right hand, towards the direction of his upper left corner. As such, he easily avoided his opponent's palm. Manifesting his fingers like claws and using them in a knife hand strike, he viciously moved his right hand downwards in a chopping move towards his opponent's wrist. Crack! A crisp sound of bones breaking rang out. The combined black essence force increased Jiang Yi's strength by 2 to 3 times, such that he was weaker by this cast tripod realm guard by just a bit. It was thus a normal phenomenon that this knife hand strike, in which he literally applied all his power to, was able to split open his opponent's wrist bone. Hiss! His opponent endured his pain, taking in a mouthful of cold air. With a face filled with shock and horror, he instinctively tried to withdraw his palms, yet Jiang Yi would not let him retreat so easily. Creating another knife hand strike pose with his right hand and using them like claws, he circulated his silk hands technique and grabbed his opponent's arm. Pulling his entire body forward, he shouted, twin dragon stealing pearl. Two fingers stabbed forward towards his opponent's eyes like arrows. You must be tired of living. The guard panicked for a short moment. Although he was injured and had his right arm entangled by Jiang Yi, he was nonetheless a martial artist at the third stage of the cast tripod realm. As such, his reaction speed was shockingly fast. He immediately formed a claw with his other hand and grasped towards two fingers on Jiang Yi's left hand, in the hopes of breaking the two fingers. Good. He fell for my trick. Jiang Yi's eyes had been consistently fixed on his opponent to catch his every reaction. Jiang Yi was immediately elated upon seeing that his opponent was indeed trying to catch the left hand Jiang Yi used in his sneak attack at that moment. With a right knee that he had prepared in advance, he suddenly kicked upwards, in the direction of the lower half of the guard's body. Jiang Yi's opponent was distracted by the two fingers on Jiang Yi's left hand and had much intense fury in his heart and confusion in his mind. How could he have possibly predicted that the true killer move would actually come from Jiang Yi's knees? It was only until his lower body was suddenly struck, and when he felt an intensely acute pain radiate through his body, that he suddenly realized what had happened. The brain and the crotch were the two areas where nerves were the most concentrated in the human body. Thus, even though techniques like leg to provoke the nether regions and monkey stealing the peach had always been held in contempt, they were nonetheless moves that achieved the best results. Even though Jiang Yi's single hit was not combined with the power of the Black Essence Force, the attack was nonetheless had an actual horsepower worth of strength. At the moment of impact, that martial artist at the third stage of the cast tripod realm immediately cried out in extreme agony as his body instinctively bent downwards. He had even withdrawn the hand that was supposed to grasp Jiang Yi's left hand, instead using it to cup his crotch as he howled aloud over his searing pain. With such a good opportunity placed before him, Jiang Yi would be an utter idiot if he did not know to take the chance to completely pulverize his opponent. With his right hand having already released his opponent's arm earlier on, he glanced down to see Xiaonu, who was lying on the ground, and shouted loudly, "Xiaonu!" Having grown up with Jiang Yi since a young age, Jiang Xiaonu was deeply in sync with Jiang Yi in mind and spirit. This single shout made Xiaonu immediately respond in kind, by releasing her hands from their opponent's left foot. At the same time, Jiang Yi sent a flying kick sweeping in, sending this martial artist at the third stage of the cast tripod realm flying back. In the blink of an eye, only a short duration of several seconds had passed, from the time the martial artist at the third stage of the cast tripod realm rushed in, to the time Jiang Yi kicked him out. At this moment, the last remaining guard outside had thought of following his comrade and rushing in. However, seeing a figure be sent flying out by a single kick left him instantly shocked to the point that he withdrew his head and refused to rush in. In such a short period of time, Jiang Yi was able to consecutively attack and injure two people, and was one of the two not the strongest amongst them. A warrior at the third stage of the cast tripod realm? How could this guard possibly dare to rush in now and end up getting thrashed? Jiang Yi was able to see clearly the look of confusion and dread in the guard's eyes, even though it had only flashed past for a single moment. Struck with some inspiration, he walked towards the main door with big strides. With a face full of insolence, he glared at the guard and called coldly, "Come on and attack. Why don't you come over here and fight me?" Jiang Yi surged forward in an aggressive, imposing manner. Relying on the power of consecutively attacking and injuring two persons alone, he had managed to shock his opponent. That person had flinched his body and retreated backward in 2 steps, yet as he did so, he stumbled and almost fell to the ground. "You bastard, you clearly want to die." He responded very quickly to Jiang Yi, his shame immediately turning to rage. How could he be frightened off by just a small child? He raised his hand at once, posed in the shape of a fist, and swung it in the direction of Jiang Yi. "This is bad." Jiang Yi sensed that he was in trouble. He had already used up all his Black Essence Force, while coincidentally the dark spark in his eye was also gradually becoming increasingly blurry. It was evident that the Black Essence Force near his eyes had been completely consumed. Without Black Essence Force, He was in reality just a martial artist at the first stage of the cast tripod realm. How could he be any match for this guard at the second stage of the cast tripod realm? Stop. Fortunately for him, at that moment that housekeeper suddenly shouted loudly from a not too far away distance, ordering the guard to stop. That housekeeper took several steps forward, his eyes giving a look of bewilderment. Taking several glances at Jiang Yi from top to bottom, he asked, "Psychedelic step, phantom punch, silk hand? Are you a member of the Jiang clan? Dare I ask, are you a young master, and which family do you belong?" This humble servant has indeed heard of some of the young masters of the Jiang clan. Jiang Yi gave the housekeeper a cold stern look. He thought to himself that this Fenyu brothel did indeed have someone powerful backing them, otherwise, how would a mere housekeeper be able to recognize the martial art techniques of the Jiang clan? He grumbled bitterly in his mind. Although the housekeeper recognized that he was a member of the Jiang clan and certainly didn't dare to beat him to death. However, should the incident that day get publicized, and should the Jiang clan disciplinary court find out, it was a small matter for him to get punished. But he was afraid that Xionu would be beaten to death for damaging the family's reputation. He could only clench his fist and restrain himself. Instead, he coldly retorted, "Why do you care whose son of which family I come from? You people viciously beat up my maidservant today. Anywhere you go to seek any justice, I will not be afraid to counter you." Ha ha ha. The housekeeper laughed aloud. He stared at Jiang Yi and replied sarcastically, "Justice? Your maidservant works for me. Have I ever not paid her a cent less? She did not do her work properly, you know." Not only did she brazenly run to the inner court, she even destroyed a famous painting that our Fenyu brothel boss bought at an exorbitant price. On top of that, you little brat, you did not bother finding out what happened, and just rushed in and attacked our guards here at Fenyu brothel indiscriminately. Since you say you want to serve justice, then should we go over to your Jiang clan disciplinary court to seek that justice? For if you can't give us an explanation or a solution, we will be at an impasse and the problem will not go away. Jiang Yi was dumbfounded, shaken by the fact that the other party was going to report to the Jiang clan disciplinary court. Taking a deep breath, he silently calmed his frantic heart. His mind racing, he tried to think of a way out. He quickly cleared his thoughts. He had, after all, already injured two of his opponent's men. Additionally, his opponent recognized the martial arts techniques of the Jiang clan and had evidently become apprehensive. Why else would that housekeeper not retaliate against him, but rather call for his guards to stand down? Since the opponent temporarily did not dare to fight any longer and asked to negotiate, why not? It would probably be easy to deal with, so long as he could protect Jiang Xionu's life as well as that of his own. Anything else would be secondary. He silently told himself to remain calm. He raised his head to look at the housekeeper and coldly asked, "How do you want to settle this?" "Very easy." The malicious eyes of the housekeeper glanced at Jiang Xionu, who was standing behind Jiang Yi, before coldly laughing and replying, "Either you pay up, this girl stays here as a slave for 10 years, or you leave one hand behind." Jiang Xionu stood up behind him, her frail weak body trembling violently as she held tightly on to Jiang Yi's arm. Free-flowing tears gushed out of her eyes. She clenched her teeth and pleaded in a low voice, "Young master, it's all my fault. You can just leave. Don't worry about me anymore." "What kind of rubbish are you saying? If I stop caring about you, who else will?" Jiang Yi turned around and stared, sternly reprimanding Xionu. His mind, however, was still racing. Thinking back about how he had heard the sound of Xionu crying when he first entered the building earlier, though he did not know at the time the specific details of what exactly happened, he was still able to guess the gist of it. Evidently, the housekeeper must have seen Xionu and thought that, though she was skinny, weak and pale-faced, she still had exquisite and pretty facial features. As such, he was ready to groom her for a few years before using her to receive guests. Thus, he deliberately set up a trap to make her sell herself to this brothel, and in turn, help them earn dirty money after a few years. However, regardless of whether or not it was the housekeeper's sinister plot, there was no solution for the incident that day. If he chose to fight, there was no more black essence force in his body. To say nothing of the 2 uninjured guardsmen still available, the housekeeper himself evidently had power at a level that was not considered weak. There would only be one outcome should they fight, that of Jiang Yi crawling back to the Jiang residence. If he chose to complain further, that option was even more improbable. The Jiang residence was not far from here. Should this incident get spread to the Jiang clan, the consequences would be even more severe. That left only one solution, which was to give in to his opponent's requests. It was just that. Leaving behind one hand was impossible. The loss of one hand would make him completely useless. As for the option to leave Xionu behind and not care for her anymore, that option would be worse than death. Then there was no choice but to pay for the damages. The problem was he was so poor that he had not gotten new underwear for the past 2 years. What money could he possibly have? Chapter 7. The task of the enormous debt. Even though he had no idea how to repay, or even what to pay with, Jiang Yi nonetheless gritted his teeth and asked, "How do you want me to pay it back?" The chief supervisor smiled faintly and, as though he was trying to play down the issue, said simply, "This artwork was purchased at Pearl Gathering Pavilion and cost some tentals of purple gold. Look, I don't want much from you. All you need to do is to pay me back the original value of the artwork. Otherwise even if we beat you two to death, we have the right of reason." Tentals of purple gold? Jiang Yi's pupils contracted. His monthly salary was only worth 1 tel of tiny silver pieces, but 1 tel of purple silver was equivalent to 100 tels of silver. One could not possibly earn 10 tels of purple gold even if Jiang Yi was sold off. It was clear that this guy had set his mind on ensuring Jiang Xionu stayed behind. Fight them to the death? Jiang Yi shook his head. There were many people outside and, having no more black essence force left, if he took the hard way, both people might end up having to stay behind. The chief supervisor was right. It was unimportant if they beat the two of them to death, for the Jiang family would definitely not bother to investigate the incident. This chief was shrewd, and eyes shone with malice. From his apparel and the fact that Xionu the servant girl was working here, one could guess that his position in the Jiang family was very low. One could also estimate that he would not dare to make such a big fuss. Silently sighing for some time, all he could do was to summon what courage he had and force himself to say, "Repaying you is not a problem, but can you please extend the deadline by some time? I will hand over to you the tentals of purple gold within a month's time. If I can't return it, I'll send a hand of mine over." A month? The malicious eyes of the chief supervisor squinted before quickly shaking his head, replying, "Words mean nothing. What if you guys were to run away? Either you leave something behind as collateral, or you leave this servant girl behind." Jiang Yi's head ached. Did he own anything that was worth even a penny? Leave Jiang Xionu behind? Who knows how badly she would be abused by them this entire month. He moved his pupils as he retrieved a command token from the chest area of his robes, throwing it towards the chief supervisor and saying, "Use this as collateral. I will redeem it back in a month's time." This command token was given to him by Chief Rong, which allowed him to move in and out of the medicinal plantations in the Western Hills freely. The Jiang family's laws were exceptionally strict. If the disciplinary court found out that he brazenly used the command token as collateral, he would certainly be badly punished. However, at that moment, his already limited options had already been exhausted, so he had no choice but to take this move. "Oh, you are indeed a member of the Jiang family." The housekeeper received the token with a look of astonishment, yet he did not immediately respond. Instead, he lowered his head and started muttering to himself. Time passed by slowly, second by second. Jiang Yi's body tensed up as cold sweat dripped down his back. Jiang Xiaonu's pair of pretty ears also revealed her nervousness and anxiety. The ability of the two people to safely leave Fenaiyu brothel hinged entirely on a single thought made by this very housekeeper. "All right then." Finally, the housekeeper raised his head to look at Jiang Yi, before nodding his head and replied, "I will give face to the Jiang family. After all, the Jiang family members are doubtlessly true to their word. Of course, if you fail to repay the money in a month's time, I will take this token to your Jiang family's disciplinary court to demand the money. You guys can go now." Leave. As if relieved of a big burden, Jiang Yi gritted his teeth and embraced Xiaonu, before slowly making his way out the backyard of Fenaiyu brothel in the direction of the central courtyard of the Jiang residence. His face revealed no great emotional change, but inside he felt extremely bitter. This housekeeper had hit him right on his Achilles heel. If he could not deliver the money in a month's time, should the people from Fenaiyu brothel pay the family a visit, the Jiang family's disciplinary court would undoubtedly break both his and Jiang Xiaonu's legs. Fenaiyu brothel was not very far from the Jiang residence, but Jiang Yi and Jiang Xiaonu ended up taking an entire hour to return to the Jiang residence western court. Both of them were injured, but thankfully the strong man who brutally beat Jiang Xiaonu did not use any essence force. So all Jiang Xiaonu received were some surface wounds. She thankfully hadn't sustained any muscular or skeletal injuries, otherwise Jiang Yi would have no idea how to bring her back home. By the time they returned to the western court of the Jiang residence, it was already evening. The western courtyard was crowded and full of noise, as the Jiang family servants who lived there were just returning home as the sky turned dark. However, no one bothered them, at most taking a quick glance or so, some even giving a look of mockery and laughter. After so many years of receiving the cold shoulder, the two were no stranger to such unfriendly and strange reactions. Entering the tiny courtyard of their house, Jiang Yi's legs turned to jelly even before reaching the main door of the house. He knelt on the ground, painfully holding onto his left shoulder in agony, breathing in deeply with each mouth of air. He was slapped by the guard at the third stage of the cast tripod realm. Even though he blocked the attack with his wrestling hand, one could guess that his bones were shattered by the slap. Furthermore, he had to forcefully conduct martial arts techniques, not to mention the long route he had to walk home. All these irritated his wound, leaving him in so much agony that cold sweat kept rolling down his forehead. Young master, are you alright? Jiang Xiaonu hastily knelt down, her small, grimy face showing her heartache and regret. Tears rolling down her cheeks as she spoke. Jiang Yi waved his hands dismissively and forced a smile. He reached out to touch Xiaonu's head and consoled her by saying, "Xiaonu, don't cry, I am fine. Your young master isn't someone who will go down that easily." Young master is the best." Jiang Xiaonu nodded her head rapidly like a chicken pecking rice off the ground, but continued crying. "But, young master, how are we ever going to earn 10 tals of purple gold in a month?" It's all Xiaonu's fault. She has put her burdens on young master. "Don't say that, this isn't a matter of burden or not." Jiang Yi's face darkened and stared intently at her before chiding, "Xiaonu, don't ever say this kind of silly thing again. You only have me, your young master, as your only loved one in this world, okay? Nothing is more important than you." Young master is the best." Xiaonu was so touched that she muddle-headedly cried even harder. Her tears streamed down like rainwater. "All right. Trust in your young master, I will come up with a plan. Head on in." Jiang Yi struggled to stand up and, supporting each other by the arm, he walked into the house with Jiang Xiaonu. Upon entering the interior of Jiang Yi's room, Jiang Xiaonu supported him to the bed, dried her tears, and lit a candle. After that, she quickly passed him some ointment to apply on his wounds. However, Jiang Yi shook his head and said with a bitter smile, "You've taken the wrong one, you silly girl. I have internal injuries, so give me the injury healing elixir bestowed by the family. Leave this ointment behind. You can apply it on your own injuries later." Jiang Xiaonu scratched her head, her small face filled with a look of awkwardness, before hastily turning around and hobbling out. On the route home, Jiang Yi observed that Xiaonu's injuries were not that serious. As such, he chose not to be too concerned for her, instead staring at the flickering candlelight flame. It was then that he became increasingly anxious and worried. From yesterday until now, an overwhelming number of things had happened to the point that his brain had become a melted mess. He shook his head and prepared himself to fix himself mentally after healing his wounds. Jiang Xiaonu walked in shortly after, carrying a small white porcelain bottle and a bowl of clear water. "Young master," she said as she put the items on the bedside table, "do you want to take the elixir now, or do you want to eat something first?" "Oh no, young master, You haven't eaten lunch yet, have you? Do you want me to go prepare 2 bowls of noodles first? Don't bother. Jiang Yi shook his head and asked, is there any more jerky in the house? I'll eat something simple first, then I'll heal my wounds. Sure. Jiang Xionu hurried went to retrieve the jerky she used to regularly head outside to work and had prepared some jerky lest Jiang Yi got hungry. At this moment, the jerky could be put to good use. A few moments later, Jiang Xionu retrieved the jerky, which the 2 gulped down dryly with just plain water. Jiang Yi finally had the time to inquire, Xionu, what happened today? I keep feeling something is not right with this entire incident. Did the people at Fenaiyu brothel scam you intentionally? Jiang Xionu stared blankly, blinking from time to time, replying in a daze, scam me? What's that to cheat from me? I'm broke. Silly girl. Jiang Yi helplessly sighed and, without even explaining himself, asked directly, why don't you tell me in detail what happened? Oh okay. Jiang Xionu promptly recounted in detail all the events that happened that day. Once, when she was finished with her recounting, she asked in continued confusion, young master, do you have any questions? Jiang Yi said nothing, but his pupils appeared to be spouting fire. Based on what Xionu said, combined with the context he had witnessed, he could confirm with 100% accuracy that the events that happened today was caused by that housekeeper from Fenaiyu brothel. Jiang Xionu would go to Fenaiyu brothel with Chunya every 5 days to work, wherein she helped to wash the clothes and linen changed out by the ladies of the manor. Usually, they worked in the backyard and was never allowed to go to the front yard nor the inner court. Xionu's honest personality also ensured that she would not run all over the building on her own accord without permission. Normally, the clothes that have been washed would be brought into the inner court by servants from Fenaiyu brothel. Today, however, no one from Fenaiyu brothel appeared. Instead, an old chambermaid took the initiative to order Jiang Xionu to help her bring the clothes into the inner court together. Jiang Xionu was worried about leaving Jiang Yi all alone at home and wanted to finish her work early to go home as soon as possible. As such, without thinking too much, carrying a large pail of clothes, she followed the old chambermaid into the inner court. As a result, she had only just entered the room when a guard accidentally caused her to trip, and she coincidentally crashed into a table by the wall, placed upon which as it turned out was a famous artwork purchased using much gold. Following that housekeeper appeared and viciously gave Jiang Xionu a slap and allowed the guard to bring Xionu to the backyard, demanding that she pay up for the damages or otherwise sign a contract and sell herself to the household. Xionu was so foolish. Even when she was forcefully sold off, she still wanted to help the seller count his profit. Jiang Yi was intelligent and alert since young, as such he clearly understood the whole incident. After mulling over it for just a short moment, he released a long sigh and gave a malevolent look. Gritting his teeth, he swore in a low voice, all right, you're so great, people of Fenaiyu brothel. How dare you try to trick and harm Xionu to that extent? One of these days, this master will destroy you and your building and turn you into shreds. Young master, please don't be impulsive. I heard that the forces behind the people of Fenaiyu brothel are very powerful. You're not their match at all. Looking at Jiang Yi's expression, Jiang Xionu felt some fear and concern. Almost immediately realizing what he had done, she asked incredulously, oh no, hang on, young master. Since when did you become so strong? Just now you were so powerful, being able to injure all those bad people. You don't have to worry about these things, believe me. Xionu, perhaps very soon, I will be able to provide a good life for you. You will no longer need to go out and work anymore. Upon thinking about that mysterious black essence force, Jiang Yi's spirit rose and became agitated again. He promptly finished the remaining meat jerky in a few rapid bites. He was ready to start healing once he was done eating, and later he would carefully study that black essence force. He had the intuition that perhaps this mysterious black essence force would turn his life completely on its head. Oh, young master is so powerful. You can do it, young master. The simple and pure of heart Jiang Xionu quickly stopped asking questions. She merely nodded her head rapidly and her eyes grew to twin moons. It was clear that she looked up to him. Both having finished their jerky, Jiang Yi once again checked Xiaonu's wounds, confirming that she did not have any injured bones. He got her to return home to find Chunya to help her apply ointment, while instructing her not to let any of the family members know what happened that day. Jiang Xiaonu had obedient to Jiang Yi ever since she was young. After asking a few questions out of concern, she limped out of the house. The weak, skinny figure in the candlelight looked most pitiful, giving the observing Jiang Yi much heartache. Only after Xiaonu left did Jiang Yi sit on his bed in a daze. He took the opportunity to clear his cluttered and messy mind. Yesterday he had just been beaten up by Jiang Yu and his lackeys and fallen into a coma for an entire morning. Upon returning home, a nameless formulation mysteriously appeared in his mind. Subsequently, he refined a sliver of mysterious black essence force through this nameless formulation. Borrowing the strength of this black essence force, he had viciously beat up Jiang Bao, and had even gone to rescue Xiaonu from Fenaiyu brothel. Yet he now owed an enormous debt worth tentals of purple gold. Tentals of purple gold? Thinking to that stage, the corners of Jiang Yi's mouth twitched. Where could he go to earn so much money within a month? Further, he had beaten up Jiang Bao in the morning. Surely his boss Jiang Yu would be coming to get revenge soon enough. Even though Jiang Yu's abilities were rather average, his dad was the Jiang family's chief supervisor. Jiang Yu never lacked elixirs which could help boost his power up to the 4th stage of the caste tripod realm. Even if Jiang Yi used his black essence force, he would still find it difficult to emerge victorious in a fight. "I'm counting on you, Black Essence Force." Jiang Yi pursed his lips as a ray of help flashed past his eyes. This Black Essence Force was so mysterious and powerful. If he studied it carefully, perhaps he would discover a new, previously hidden power which would enable him to escape his terrible circumstances. Chapter 8. The Exploding Elixir. Hiss. The slight sensation of pain coming from his left shoulder jolted Jiang Yi, who was deep in thought, back to his senses. He could only force himself not to think too much for the moment and focus on getting his injury healed first. He took out a new yellow tablet from the small porcelain vase and gulped it down with some water. This was the lowest grade healing medicine the Jiang family refined and produced themselves. The Mantir inferior level product Yellow Ginseng Elixir. Systems related to martial arts research and development were advanced on Stellar Ski Continent. Elixirs, weaponry, cultivation techniques, and martial arts techniques all had distinct grading levels. All of them were divided from weak to strong and classified as Man-tier, Earth tier, or Heaven tier, with each grade being further divided into 3 subgrades of superior, medial, and inferior. For instance, the Jiang water art practiced by Jiang Yi was classified as Man-tier superior grade. The highest level martial art technique Phantom Fist that he had learned from the Jiang family was also classified as Man-tier superior grade. As a young master from a branch family, according to Jiang family laws, Jiang Yi could redeem 3 Man-tier medial grade essence soul pills, which could help in his refining training, as well as 2 Man-tier medial grade black ginseng elixirs, healing elixirs that could be easily and quickly taken should he injure himself during refining and training. Unfortunately, as he had been increasingly disfavored by the Jiang family over the past 2 years, not only had his monthly salary been cut again time and time again, even the elixirs had been replaced with the lowest of grades. The human grade inferior grade essence force elixir and yellow ginseng elixir. Worse still, the quantity had even been reduced to just 1 pill. The medicinal power of this yellow ginseng elixir was very weak. It was refined from the grass ginseng grown in the medicinal plantations in the Western Hills combined with some medicinal herbs, and only had the effect of improving blood circulation. Jiang Yi had no intention to rely fully on such a low-grade elixir. After taking the pill he immediately started circulating the Jiang water art technique to begin the healing process. Huff. After sitting cross-legged for 2 entire hours, Jiang Yi finally opened his eyes with a look of helplessness. When he was just circulating the Jiang water art, he had used his inner vision and discovered that 3 bones on his left shoulder had cracked. This was an injury which, relying on the Jiang water art, would take at least a full day and night of meditation to fully heal. This is to say nothing about the efficacy of that elixir. The grade of the elixir was too low, its medical efficacy too weak and the speed of its healing effects slow. It had already been 2 hours, yet the medicine had only just penetrated into the blood and was just slowly making its way to the wound. Who can say for certain that Jiang Wu won't come tomorrow? I think I should start researching that black essence force for a bit. After all, this inner injury has temporarily been suppressed. I think trying to heal it later would be better. Jiang Yi pondered for a while and gave up on healing his injuries. He started practicing the nameless cultivation technique instead, to extract some black essence force. 2 hours later, he opened his eyes once again and could feel, in the corner of his dantian, the 6 strands of black essence force currently stored there. The more he looked at them, the cuter they seemed. After all, they were his babies, and if not for this black essence force, there would be much worse things happening today. How should I research this afternoon? I've already tried it with my fists, legs, elbows, and eyes. How about I try with my ears? With that thought, since the black essence force could improve one's sight, could the same strengthening happen for one's sense of hearing, right? And the nose? Who knew if one's sense of smell could be strengthened, too? If Jiang Yi said he'd do it, he would definitely do it. Jiang Yi circulated a strand of black essence force and combined it together with some assembled blue essence force, before slowly controlling its movement towards his head. This black essence force was lacking in quantity. If it was not combined with the blue one, he feared that on its own the black essence force was not enough to produce any effect. The medicinal power of this yellow ginseng elixir is starting to take effect and is automatically healing the wound. It's just too bad that the medicinal efficacy is too weak. When the merged essence force passed through the meridians near his left chest area, Jiang Yi subconsciously stopped and used his inner vision to observe his wounds. He was unprepared for the unexpected change. That black essence force actually separated from the blue essence force and suddenly merged with the nearby elixir powers. Jiang Yi felt his body tremble and he shuddered. Evidently, his healing speed had accelerated, to the point that the healing speed reached approximately 5 or 6 times the original speed. The effects were now on par with Mantia superior grade healing elixirs. How weird to think that this black essence force could actually increase the medicinal power of an elixir. Jiang Yi's heartbeat increased as he focused all his attention on observing his wound. Unfortunately, in some 20 or 30 seconds, the black essence force was completely used up and the wound healing speed likewise slowed down. Even with blue essence force nearby, the increase in healing speed was minimal. Jiang Yi immediately summoned a strand of black essence force, before once again sending it near the wound area, to amalgamate with the medicinal power and speed up the wound healing process. Feeling the broken bones speedily mending together, Jiang Yi felt much euphoria. He waited for the black essence force to be used up completely before once again continuing to summon more black essence force to speed up the wound healing process. What made him dismal was that his black essence force was too little. In only a matter of seconds, the 6 strands of refined black essence force had been completely consumed. He used his inner vision to check on his wound and his emotions quickly improved. In such a short amount of time, the wound recovery speed had already overtaken the amount he had healed through meditation by 4 to 6 hours. If at that moment he had enough black essence force, he estimated that within 2.5 minutes he would be able to heal his wounds by 70 to 80%. At the moment he did not care about anything else, and immediately sat cross-legged to meditate and circulate the nameless cultivation technique to extract more black essence force. The consumption of this black essence force was way too fast, and there was never enough to use during critical moments. This time he prepared to store extra, by not sleeping and instead extracting for 8 to 10 hours until the sky turned bright. He aimed to extract as much as possible so that he could once and for all get his wounds fully recovered the next morning. Yet, 6 hours later, while the sky was still dark, Jiang Yi stopped the extraction process. He opened his eyes, revealing a look of non-comprehension and melancholy, because after extracting 10 strands of this black essence force, no matter how much he circulated the nameless cultivation technique, his dantian no longer produced any more black essence force. How can this be? This doesn't make sense. Jiang Yi's face was full of shock. Originally he had thought that when he had increased his black essence force in the future, he could try to work the essence force in a full-powered attack and see if the power was enormous. If he could confirm that his power had increased greatly, he wanted to slowly change and practice this nameless cultivation technique instead, even if the speed of cultivating black essence force was much slower than that of the original blue essence force. Now he did not need to consider this, as there were only 10 strands of black essence force. This was completely not enough to even use in an independent attack, nor release any power without merging with blue essence force. 10 strands? What can I do with so little? Jiang Yi was discontent and once again sat cross-legged to meditate and operate the nameless technique. Yet 1 short hour later, he had no choice but to open his eyes. The black essence force in his dantian had not increased by a single strand. Let's see if I can continue extracting after consuming them, he muttered to himself for a short moment before collecting a strand of black essence force to facilitate the healing of the wound. Only after consuming that strand of black essence force did he hastily sit cross-legged to work on the nameless cultivation technique again. The result was that his dantian once again started producing black essence force. Yet once the 10 strands of this essence force had been collated, the numbers did not increase again. What kind of stupid cultivation technique is this? Are the heavens trying to mess with me? Jiang Yi was so melancholic that he wanted to vomit blood. When he opened his eyes and used his vision to sweep the room, he realized that the sky outside was already bright and rustling sounds of Xionu waking up were coming from the nearby room. Forget it. I'll think of a plan next time. It's not early anymore. Let me heal my wounds first. I have to go to field number 5 to take stock later. Hopefully I won't be blocked by Jiang Ryu and gang. Jiang Yi remembered the briefing by Chief Rong the day before and did not dare to delay any further. If he did not fix his injuries, even with the black essence force, his fighting abilities would still be greatly reduced. It was just that when he had collated a strand of black essence force and moved it near the wound area and prepared to merge with the medicinal power, he discovered that, when more than 6 hours had passed, the medical efficacy had been completely consumed. This yellow ginseng elixir had proven itself to be the lowest grade elixir with a pitifully weak medical efficacy. No. Wait. Since blue essence force can help heal wounds and my black essence force is so obscenely powerful, surely it can speed up and facilitate my healing process. Why would I ever need to merge it with the elixir medical power? Jiang Yi suddenly thought of something and his heart skipped a beat. It was 2 separate matters altogether between the black essence force increasing the strength of the medical effects and being able to directly speed up the healing process. If it were the latter, how obscene powerful would that be? In the future, he would no longer have to heal his wounds with the help of healing elixirs. However, what left him perplexed was that, when he circulated the combined essence force near his wounds to facilitate healing, he found out that the healing speed was exactly the same as that of the original blue essence force. The speed would not increase no matter what. This black essence force could only increase the medical healing power of elixirs, and not heal wounds on its own. Jiang Yi was inwardly anxious. It was no longer early. Should he delay taking stock in the herb fields, he might get scolded by Chief Rong again. The problem was that, with his unhealed wounds, he did not dare to go to the fields at all, for he was scared of being harassed by Jiang Ryu and his gang. Right, off to the elixir room to retrieve an elixir. He remembered that the elixir for that month had not been received. He hurriedly got out of bed and absent-mindedly tidied up his robes before heading outside. As he walked, he moved his left shoulder, noticing that, while the conditions of his wound were not as serious as the day before, it was still stinging with pain. Young master, where are you going? Upon hearing Jiang Yi's footsteps, a small head emerged from the next room. With yellowing fluffy loose hair and a pair of puffy big eyes that still had some tear stains hidden underneath, the face showed a look of unease as she saw Jiang Yi heading out early in the morning. Xionu, I'm just heading out quickly and will be back in a jiffy. Jiang Yi casually briefed her with 2 instructions, asking her to stay at home and not go out. Additionally, should someone come to the door, she had to hide in the backyard. He hastily walked in the direction of the eastern court to immediately retrieve an elixir and heal his injuries. At a fast speed he left the western court. Jiang Yi walked in the direction of the south court, where the elixir room was located. As it was already daybreak, the Jiang residence was getting lively and bustling, but no one concerned themselves with the down and out disfavored collateral descendant Jiang Yi. After 5 minutes, Jiang Yi arrived at the elixir room. He flinched at the door, cowering as he looked into the room, wondering if the elder of the elixir room was there. This man in charge of producing elixirs for the Jiang family, Elder Liu, had a bizarre temperament. In the end, what left him truly speechless was an old man in the inner part of the room, wearing a long brown robe with disheveled hair like a madman, standing around a cauldron and staring into it with his eyes wide open. As for the Jiang family collateral descendant who was normally in the elixir room helping Jiang Song, he was not in the elixir room. Elder Liu was famous in the Jiang family for his weird temper, thus Jiang Yi and other Jiang family descendants preferred to avoid him and instead find Jiang Song when they came to collect elixirs, to avoid insulting or angering this weird old man that had an influential position in the family. What should I do? Come back later? Jiang Yi muttered to himself, lowering his head. However, at that moment, Elder Liu suddenly shouted from inside the room, Jiang Song, what are you doing suspiciously standing outside? Faster! Get in here and temper the flames. Useless boy, all you know how to do is to laze around all day. Jiang Yi awkwardly scratched his nose, walked out from where he was hiding, and cupped his hands as he greeted, Greetings, Elder Liu. I am not Jiang Song. I, Jiang Yi, am here to retrieve elixirs. Retrieve elixirs my ass. Elder Liu's face turned dark, blew his beard and stared at Jiang Yi as he replied, You useless sons, all of you never ever attend to your daily duties, yet during medicine collection time you guys become so efficiently quick. Elixirs? None. Ha. Jiang Yi's face showed his awkwardness, standing his ground on the original spot where he was at, neither entering nor leaving. What are you still standing here for? Get out. Don't disturb me from refining elixirs. This Jiang Song evidently wants to die. Why is he taking so long in the toilet? I even have to temper the flames myself. Elder Liu stared at Jiang Yi as the single hand he placed on the cauldron walls started glowing with red essence force. However, he shifted his pupils and turned his head towards Jiang Yi as he waved his hand, ordering, You, get over here. Help me temper the flames of this cauldron of elixirs. I am going to check the elixir formula. Me? Jiang Yi was just ready to leave in shame, but upon hearing the elder's orders he was immediately stumped for words. He hurriedly gestured his hands and shook his head in the negative, replying, No way, Elder Liu, I don't know how to refine elixirs. I can't do it. Angered, Elder Liu scowled fiercely and reprimanded, Damn it, this is not difficult at all. This cauldron is almost done anyway. All you need to do is to apply essence force towards this spot. It'll be done once the elixir solidifies and takes shape. Hurry up and get yourself over here. If you screw this up, don't ever think of collecting even a single elixir pill from here ever again. Finishing his scolding, Elder Liu walked with big steps in the direction of a side room. Jiang Yi hesitated for a moment, knowing that he had to grit his teeth and do this task, before sticking both his hands on the cauldron walls and applying blue essence force. Yet, what befuddled Jiang Yi was that the essence force, which he had just been applied to the cauldron, was being absorbed speedily and automatically by the cauldron like a sponge, with the absorption at a shocking speed, so fast that the essence force in the meridians in his hands was completely absorbed in an instant. Jiang Yi did not know how to refine elixirs and was naturally scared of ruining the task at hand. As such, he hurriedly and chaotically worked his essence force, using all his might to apply them on the elixir cauldron. In the haste, he accidentally released 2 strands of black essence force, merging them with the blue essence force and applying them straight into the cauldron. Bang! At the moment when the black essence force was injected into the cauldron, the entire cauldron released a muffled explosion sound as it shook violently, almost overturning and falling to the ground. The elixir exploded. From the side room immediately came a furious roar, Damn it! This cauldron contained Mantia superior grade spirit pills. I'm going to kill you. Jiang Yi.